Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, the show here on Let's Talk Entertainment, where over the last few years I have been trying to review each and every single story ever written by the author Ray Bradbury. We are up to story number 238 today, which is also the next to last story in the collection The Cat's Pajamas from 2004. Today's story is All My Enemies Are Dead, which was written in 2003. If you're new to the show, the way that this works is I do a brief synopsis of what happens in the story, and at the end, just do a very, very brief analysis, some thoughts and feelings about what it all means. Did I like this story? And hopefully you find that useful. If not, I really just do this for my own entertainment. All right, then. Walter Gripp reads the morning paper and is suddenly devastated. He picked up the obituaries and he found that Timothy Sullivan, his last living enemy, has died. And he's telling this to the narrator. He even suggests, comically, that the man may have died just to provoke him, and suddenly the narrator realizes that Walter has lost the will to live. With Walter wanting to die, the narrator suddenly starts provoking him. He tells him stories like how years ago he stole money from their mutual business and blamed it on somebody else. He tells another story how when they were in high school, he convinced a girl that Walter was really, really bad just so she would go with him instead of with her. And then eventually, as he's telling these stories sort of along the way, Walter's not really being as upset as he should be. He's very forgiving. But finally, the narrator says, yeah, years ago, I slept with your wife. And he says, impossible. I would have heard of that. And then the narrator says, since when do husbands ever really hear about these stories? And that suddenly sets him off. And they sort of run around the room yelling at each other. But there's a sense of glee in the whole thing. But finally, the narrator realizes that Walter has regained his will to live by becoming his enemy, and he sort of smiles as he runs out the door. This is a funny, high-paced, comedic little short story. It's almost exclusively told in dialogue. You have to be a little bit careful reading it because it can be easy to forget who is actually talking because there's not a whole lot of differentiation between Walter and the narrator. So you have to be careful about that. I guess that's probably one of the pitfalls of this story, one of the downsides. But really the story is about the importance of having rivals. For many people, it's that sense of competition. That's a little bit of, I think hate's too strong a word, but the sense of rivalry and competition that drives them. And what do they do when they lose that? What drive is there to keep them going? It's probably a sad state of human affairs when you are like that. I think competition, in a way, in many cases, can be very, very detrimental to us. But in the case of Walter, it's very much what he was thriving on. And then in a show of an act of friendship, the narrator attempts to sacrifice his friendship with Walter by making himself his enemy to give Walter a reason to live. But also it's because they are in a mutual business together, and if Walter goes, so too goes their business. But really it's about, I would say, how weird friendship can be. So yeah, not one of Bradbury's better works, but it does have a fun little vibe going on to the whole thing. You can see where it's the type of thing where he probably jotted down an idea, popped into your head, you put it right on a napkin, put it away, and then you scribble this story out in a few hours and it's done. There's a reason why it's not considered one of his classics, but it's also delightful, a little bit forgettable, but also fun, and I'm glad I read it. It took all of like 5 minutes. So there is that, nothing lost. But there you go. All of My Friends Are Dead, written in 2003. That is the 238th story in Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, this show. Next time, we'll be looking at a story called The Completist. It is the final story in this collection, The Cat's Pajamas Stories. It was written in 2003 and 2004. And then when we're done with that, we're going to jump down to this next volume, which is We Always Have Paris Stories. Which has got 22 more stories for us to explore here on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. I'm glad that you tuned in today, and I hope that you will continue to follow me on this journey through the wonderful works of the late, great Ray Bradbury. See you later.